Hello and welcome back to the Union Street Podcast. We are coming to you live. Hopefully, we're going to get Shawn Vincelette on this live stream here very soon, but I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We're very excited to bring you this episode of the Union Street Podcast. Hope you're doing good out there. We are so excited because today we're going to be talking with Shawn Vincelette about his Marion Landmarks Series Volume 3, his book that he's just releasing. Very excited. He is going to be at the Union Street Arts Fair, May 6th in downtown Marion, Illinois. So we're very excited about that. So come on downtown Marion on Saturday, next Saturday, as we have 20 local vendors. We are super excited. There's Shawn coming in. Hey, Shawn. All right. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'm going to get Shawn in here right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Shawn Vincelette. Hey, Shawn. Sorry for technical difficulties.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. That was something getting on, but we finally made it. Shawn, good to see you.
You too. You too, buddy.
I was just explaining to the people that potentially are listening, if you are, share this post so we can get some more engagement. And just sharing that we have the upcoming art event, which we're so excited that you are coming here, Shawn, for that.
Yeah, your event. This will be the 3rd anniversary. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, you've inspired me with that. In the past 2 years, just schedules haven't allowed me to attend. And early on, you mentioned this one, which I'm a planner. I like to plan way in advance. So at the time in which you mentioned it or shared it, one or the other, I don't remember which, I had probably about a little less than half of the book completed. So I was, I was still had a big hurdle to go. And when I say completed, I mean drawing and researching and writing. That's a completely separate from the layout and the printing. So it's, anyway. So when you mentioned your event, that's what kind of gave me a bullseye to aim for to finish it. So,
well, that's awesome, Shawn. Well, we're super excited. I want to talk about the new book, get into some of the process of what the new creations you've been working on for the Marion Landmarks series, Volume 3. But I do want to take a moment to just thank everyone that has signed up. We have 20 vendors, so not only will you see some amazing work by Shawn Vincelette, but there will also be others there as well. We want to thank our sponsor for making that happen and helping this programming, Banterra Bank. So shout out to our generous sponsors for making this type of programming available. And we just announced our live music lineup as well, so that's going to create a cool, hopefully, ambiance throughout the day. But Shawn, I want to. You're just living just south of town right now, right? We're beaming from the satellite system just south of here.
Yeah, just a skosh south of south of town, southeast. Actually, we got to get that east in there.
Right, on the Eastern time zone. How far south is that?
Oh, yeah, maybe a few hundred miles.
But no, we're excited you're making the trip. And I will say, though, recently I was a little disappointed because I thought my original Shawn Vincelette art collection was going to triple in value.
Yeah, you and a few other people. Yeah, I had a heart attack, and actually several of them in one day. So
that's a big deal.
It was, I guess it kind of all got put into line when the cardiologist said to me that not a lot of people can see this side of the Widowmaker. So, up until then, I don't want to say it wasn't painful and scary, because it was all those things, but it was not nearly as dramatic as what my mind thought a heart attack would be. So, but then, like I said, when I heard the cardiologist say that, it kind of put it all into perspective for me. So, yeah, I'm very thankful and happy to still be here. So, thank you.
Well, all jokes aside, Shawn, we're happy you're still here. Good grief, even though that would have tripled in value, but now we can have new art too by Shawn Vincelette. We want that.
Yeah, there'll be some additional work now coming out of it.
All jokes aside, glad to hear that you're doing well and that you're able to make the trip. And from we had a previous call, it sounded like almost a new appreciation of gratitude that you're creating with right now. It sounds like.
Yes, there's I'm as you and I spoke personally offline, I'm trying to not be overly mushy with all of it, because I was already kind of mushy before. So, um, but yes, there's always been a sense for me as an artist. There's always been a sense of a finite amount of time to create things. I don't know where that came from or why it's in my head, but it's always been there. Uh, so since this last event, or since the heart attack, I won't say that's gone away, but I now do it from a different perspective, or at least I'm looking at it from a different perspective. It's not like I've done a lot of work because that was only a month ago, but like the projects that are interesting me now for the future are ones that I set aside years ago and went, oh, I'll get to them eventually. So now I'm revisiting a lot of those and having fun with that. So,
Well, that's exciting.
yeah.
I mean, there's more to come. It sounds like, and I do want to get into some of that, but I want to just give a brief introduction, Shawn, for anyone that's been living under a rock here in Marion for the past many years. But you might know Shawn from his artwork, the murals here in Marion, or maybe just his scribbles on a notebook.
Yeah. There's
Prolific artist, um, and an art mentor of mine, and really getting to create with you, Shawn, has been a transformative experience, and just a complete joy. So I'm just happy to see you. You're well, to be able to talk to you today and just create more things and have a good time at this art event too. So
yeah.
excited, Shawn. Uh, it's good to see your shiny face.
We are you can't get rid of me that easily.
Not so fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna be around now that I know that what a heart attack feels like, and I can push through it. There's gonna be a lot of scribbles on a lot of walls in the future.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about the book and as in your most recent creations. So can you describe, Shawn, and introduce the Marion Landmark series? What is it, and what is the new book that will be featured here coming up at May 6th?
So, to be as brief as possible, I started this series right after my mom passed, which was in 2011. So, and well, actually, the series started while she was sick, but it really got kicked into high gear after she passed. Spent a lot of time in hospitals and doctors' offices with her, doodling, and she's the one who always encouraged my art, and she also fed my nerdiness of being a history bug. So if there was, a house tour, or if there was something local history or big history, if she could get me there to see it, she would bend over backwards to do that. So I thank her for that. So the reason I share all that is at some point while she was sick, she said, why don't you draw? Why don't you focus your attention on local history? And that's where it started, honestly. Um, my mom was kind of a frustrated photographer, and the fact that she took a lot of photos, but she never shared them. So we started going through her photos, and that first show, the first exhibit, I had 10 pieces. That was the anniversary 1 year after she passed is when we had that first show at the pavilion. And, I just did it because the pavilion had invited me to exhibit the work, and it gave me something to share. But I had no clue as to what I might be tapping into until the show. And I'm very fortunate that there was a lot of people to come to that show, and just hearing people recollect their nostalgic feelings, walks down memory lane, it just became very clear that, um, you know, my love of art, history, and my little town, there was something cooking there. So, um, my other half said when I was doing this series, he kept saying, well, who's going to buy that picture of the church or whatever it was I was drawing? And I had no clue, and the images started piling up. So at some point, I introduced the first book just as a way to kind of put all of those drawings into one piece that people could walk away with. And that's where I found the connection with the history, and that's kind of where everything started. So obviously now with volume 3, I'd like to say that things could stop with volume 3, but I still have some ideas.
Well, still some good photographs, I'm sure.
Yeah,
That is so
yeah.
cool.
The more I scratch, the more I dig, the more I find. And so if I can just keep talking, I'm just going to add this. So in the first book, there was a lot more of my history. The drawings were kind of centered around my family, and there was some recognizable locations, but there were also some uh, more family or personal images. In the second book, which I did all color, sorry, the first book was all black and white. The second book I did all color, and that one I focused on just buildings, just either buildings that most of them were gone, but there's a few that are still around. Um, and in that research, I found there was a lot of stories to tell in words as well as the images. I'm an artist, I'm not a writer. So if I could tell the story with the images, that made it better. But by the time I get to the third volume, there was so many histories, some stories that I had to incorporate writing words, obviously, into to the book to give more background. And
Absolutely.
so through that process, just by digging, finding personalities, Marion was. I should know this right off the top of my head. When Marion was founded, 18. I'm not even going to say because I don't want to be wrong, but so early 1800s. Point being is there's a lot of people who have lived and died in that little town, and that's a lot of personalities and a lot of histories, and that's what I'm finding now is more fascinating to me as an artist than just the buildings or just what was on the square. So anyway, that was a lot of words. Sorry.
No, that does give a connection to the pieces, that people know those places, they have those memories, and it brings them back to a place in time,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives them that emotion. It brings that is what great art does, and so that is what is it's really a really cool aspect. I do want to show. I want to pull up some images here, if that's okay with you, Shawn.
Sure, sure. Hey,
Um,
you're the techno guy. You got
well,
me.
well, I want to. If anybody's just listening to this, Shawn, can we? I've got your Facebook here.
Okay.
This is the Landmark series. So, can you just describe or pick an image here that, because we have here the cover. Can we start with the cover?
Sure. The cover's a good one because it has there's a lot of extra. Um, yeah.
Is that all right?
You can see that.
Can you describe? Can you see it a little?
I can. Yeah. I know what it is.
And you've got the book with you too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe we could show it.
There we go.
Ooh, nice.
So this cover actually, I'm just gonna start talking if that's good.
Yes, please, good. Yeah.
Um, I don't want to say that this is what spawned or started, spawn's not the right word, started the murals in downtown Marion, but this image has got a lot to do with that. So um, I
Absolutely, it does.
I had created this much of the image. So this part, I had created that much of the image when Josh Benson, right before the pandemic hit, he wanted to paint a mural on the side of in Paradise Alley on the side of Lavish Bath Box. And originally we had a completely different image in mind, and we were only going to do a small portion of the wall. You already know all this, Luke, so I'm just rehashing for those who
Oh,
might be.
please. Yes. No,
Um,
this is important historical context from a first person view. So this
right.
is very important to mention, Shawn.
And it's one of the good stories to come out of COVID, in my opinion. I mean, for me anyway. I know a lot of people were anyway. So Josh approached me about painting the mural, and between that point and us organizing that is when COVID, they didn't want you to go anywhere. So it kind of put everything on hold, which allowed me to kind of step back and do a little more planning on the previous image, which was an okay image, but this one's better. So I approached Josh and I said, how about if we do something different? Fast forward, as you know, this is what went up in Paradise Alley. I don't remember exactly when we started that. I know it was springtime. Maybe you remember the month. But what I found so fascinating about that was there was a reason we got put on pause because we created a better image. And then when we started to work on the image on the wall, uh, people didn't have, there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. And by that point, they had kind of watched all the television they wanted to watch. So as you remember, we would turn around and look, and there would be, I don't want to say hundreds, but there would be dozens. There would be a lot of people watching us put paint on the wall. So um, I feel like that pause, redesigning the image, etc. It was a series of events that were meant to happen, because what we ended up with was that great image that's in Paradise Alley that, it is hidden. I like that fact. People have said, why did you hide it? Why did you paint it in the hidden alley? I like that because you have to kind of seek it out. And that particular image really only means something to people that are from Marion. So, the one on the Citadel, the others can inspire anybody, but that particular one, if you didn't know Old Marion, you might not know what you were looking at. So anyway, that kind of following the enthusiasm behind it is what sparked the Marion Murals project, and the group. I don't want to name any one person because I'll leave somebody out, but the whole group of people that work to make that happen, really kind of started from that particular one project. So I thought it was befitting that showed up on the cover. I do have further into the book. We have an image that Josh took at Christmas time with the carriage rides, and so it kind of shows the real life image in it. So
That's awesome.
I don't put a lot of photographs. In fact, I think that may be the very first and only photograph I've ever put in my in a book.
Wow.
But I felt like it needed to be included there. So
That's such an important context. Particularly, we're talking about the history, right? The images pulled from history, but then that also being a moment in history itself, kind of like you mentioned.
yeah.
And wow, that really did spark or lit the fire
Yeah.
for so much energy and positivity and attention, and led the revitalization effort, that lit the fire?
I think I don't want to give it, too much more credit than it deserves, because it happened at a time in which there were a lot of things igniting. A case in point was, while we were working on that, one of the mornings I came um, in the morning, um, as I came around the square, there were people everywhere, all around the square, with brooms and shovels. And then I looked off down towards Court Street, and there was another team down there. And then there was another team down by the library. And they were everywhere. And in this case, I can say there were hundreds of people, maybe a couple hundred total. But everybody was there to clean the town. No other reason other than to clean the town. So that was happening at the same time. So to me, that was just a gobsmacking moment to see that many people caring for the little town. So you add that on top of progress happening downtown, or paint going up, or improvements, and one feeds the other, which feeds the other, which we see where it's at now. So yeah,
Absolutely. No, I
community based.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was just a rallying point for the town, I'd say,
Yeah.
particularly amidst turmoil within the world itself.
Yes.
And just to have something inspiring in that moment, I think is really had a profound effect. And I think like you said, I think we've seen where it is now.
Sure.
And that's so exciting. So I'm glad you're coming back now, because since then, how many of these more murals have you done? And there's probably more in the works, which I'm hearing rumbles of.
We had in that original Marion Murals project, one of the murals that I was tasked or awarded, whatever the word may be, is on the back of the new City Hall building, the old Bank of Marion. And because it's been under renovation for the last 2 years, or for a considerable amount of time, that one is just now able to happen. So I think June is what we're looking at. So I was going to mention that. So I don't know what the total number of murals are downtown, 20 something, close to 30 now, maybe, which just is amazing to me. But, excuse me, what I find most interesting about it now is, if I mention coming to Marion, or if I mention anything, people just randomly will ask, well, when are you coming back to paint the next mural? So now it's kind of it's kind of expected, which I love as an artist. I love that. Whether I have a project or not, I love that.
Well, they feel like a part of it, because they get to see you evolve, and they get to interact as it's going up, and
Yeah.
it's kind of an experience for the viewer too,
Sure.
or your fan club, Shawn.
As you were saying that, I thought to myself, I share, I share as much of it. I'm told I overshare, but that's okay. Anyway, but I do share the process with all of my projects, so I can see how that would, tie in with that as well. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And yeah, give big shout out to Mike Absher with the Mural Vision 2020. That was pivotal. And when you created those mock images, I mean, that lit another spark even before this. So that was some envisioning, and wow, to see that execution. Wow, that's amazing. So kudos to you guys.
Those mock-ups too, there were several of those that are still viable projects owned by, well, it doesn't matter who they're owned by, but they're still viable. In other words, some of those that weren't included in that scope of the original 10 murals could still very much happen. And what I like about those is those are starting to kind of expand out from the city core. So I don't want to say downtown is saturated with murals because there's still plenty of walls to paint on, but it's nice now to kind of start including parts of town that aren't just the historic downtown part. So that's kind of, I see good things happening with what I hear. Uh, you Baseball team. I won't go any further than that. There's some other projects that will dovetail right onto these murals.
That's very exciting. It's a very exciting time, and I do want to stay on the mural topic and the upcoming mural on the new city hall.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something we can see? Is there a tease? Because from where the art fair will be taking place, we will be able to see where this mural will be going.
Actually, I do. I have it in the book. I'll have to find the location. But so, I'm an artist. I'm not wealthy. I eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly. So anytime that I can tie in a little project like this one that you're talking about, this is probably the neatest thing. So this is a magnet. I'll really hold it up there. I don't know if that focuses.
Oh, cool.
So this is the image. It's based on an old time postcard, greetings from, and then within each one of the letters there is a building, a recognizable building. But so I will have these magnets available, and these help me.
Uh-oh. We lost Shawn.
Lose me? There we go.
Are you back? You're back.
All right. Well,
it's okay. Wi-Fi.
I panicked for a second. So anyway, these fund the ability for me to get back and forth. So I've had a lot of, as I mentioned, I'm in Atlanta. I'm getting a little off track there, but so the one thing that I do have decided, I have had a couple projects here, but when it comes to large mural projects, I'm going to concentrate my energies in Marion. So I'm not going to say that I wouldn't take a project in Atlanta here because it'd be nice to have something close to home. But most of my projects that I've taken have been in Marion, for obvious reasons. I want the little town to prosper. So if I can contribute, great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that connects, connects you, so much to this town, and your fingerprint all over this downtown. Very cool. And what does that mean to you, Shawn? That to see the response, the embrace, and how it's lit a fire for now. We see new places coming, like where your mural is with the Goodall building, other places that it will be going. What is that? What can you put that in perspective?
I jokingly, my response to that is I still can't believe they let me scribble on the walls. So, if I said, I don't think about that stuff, I'd be lying. It's the legacy for me as an artist from that town. It's pretty, it's humbling because, I know that as someone who enjoys history and as a student of the arts, there are a lot of ghost murals from the turn of the century, even in downtown Marion, that after 100 years are still there. And, so the thought of some of these being there, even as ghost murals, or, maybe painted over at some point and then found again, just the thought of that's kind of, it feeds my imagination. So, don't be surprised if that concept doesn't pop up in other works in the future. So I like to recycle and reuse ideas. So don't be surprised if that happens.
Ooh, exciting. Rework it, reimagine,
You got it.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. And I do want to encourage people to come because you're going to want to get this book in person, Shawn, right?
Well, you can. You want to meet me.
I mean, come on. I mean, in the flesh.
You get a little. Um, so you can either. I use the May 6th event as my pivotal date. So but you can order. I have the pre-order on my website, which is bugaroostudio.com, and there we go. And with that, what I've done is I kept the price at 2019 prices.
Wow.
So my cost went up. I figured it was, so I kept it for the pre-orders. I've kept it at the 2019 price. Plus, everybody that pre-orders, I know it's not a great big thing, but they'll get a free magnet with their book. So
Great.
you can order the magnets through the website, or you can purchase them at the arts festival as well. So anyway, that's the plan. So I have 200 books, and like the previous two, once they're gone, they're gone. So I've had people ask about getting volume 1 and 2, and I don't think I'll be reprinting them. So we've sold probably already, maybe not a quarter, but climbing quickly. So
excellent.
yeah, I've sold more in pre-order than I thought would actually go. So yeah.
Well, that's great. And you can get it on your website, but also in person at the art fair to see
Correct.
Shawn in person. And you can ask Shawn, hey, what's behind this image? Get a little more story behind some of the images that maybe you remember.
Yeah.
And Shawn, will you be signing any books at this art fair?
All the books are, that's actually kind of what I'm doing now. I have a seal of authentication.
Oh, cool.
So every book is numbered, signed, and dated. So if somebody wants a special inscription, at the fair, I can do that, on the inside cover too. So
wow, that's an amazing touch there.
yeah, it just kind of adds a little, another extra layer. I like layers.
Oh yeah, the authenticity, like we said. I mean, this collection, hopefully, in the far future, will we won't have to wait for it to triple.
No. I don't. The books, I think that only works with like original paintings and stuff. So, now that everybody knows I have a bad ticker, it might not be a bad time to commission a piece.
Put some urgency here.
Yeah, there's no telling how long that ticker might hold out.
Oh, well, it'd be great to come support Shawn, buy his book, get the magnet, talk about the future project, get excited. Or if you like some of the murals, I'm sure Shawn would be happy to talk to you about that whole project. It was, there's so much to be said about all of that and this work. So just come out for a good day, shop around. Hopefully, if we have good weather, and see where the future murals is gonna go.
Yeah, that's I plan to have a whole picnic day on that, so we'll see.
Oh
yeah.
All right. Direct access to Shawn Vincelette in person.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So we're very excited, and we're just going to be a good day. We, it's just been a pleasure, Shawn, to see how your art has impacted this community and town, and how that will continue to in the future. I'm very excited, very very lucky to call you a friend, and you've taught me so much since I've had the pleasure of getting to know you more.
Since I put a paintbrush in.
Exactly.
And around much longer, I need you to paint.
So that is true. So I was there, Shawn, watching and doing some video.
Yeah.
Of you and Josh.
I felt bad that you were just hanging around, so I'm like, "Do you want to paint?" and you kind of just were nonplussed about it. And then I said, finally, well, if you stand there long enough, I'm going to put a paintbrush in your hand.
Yeah. You're not just going to watch anymore.
Yeah. We've the three of us have learned and grown a lot from each other. Everything from, I can, anybody who has the interest to put a paintbrush or a pencil or pen in their hand, I can guide them to do something. So that part to me is just kind of natural. The same way for like Josh, his inclination towards mechanical things and the lifts and getting us up there and safely harnessed and all that. That's his. He does that naturally. So, and then, yourself, you came along and you shared your own perspective. And the best thing I can say about that is it's your eye. As a photographer, as a videographer, you have to have that eye to see something. And as an artist, having extra eyes is a big plus. But that came naturally to you. So the three of us just kind of, I see my hands moving a lot in the screen, but that's what we did. We just kind of, worked off of each other's strengths. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say that, or to hear Josh, talk about, enjoying the creative aspect. I'm like, that, yeah, okay, I get it.
Well, that's true. I mean, led by your vision, Shawn. So, I mean, that's just, just a great thing.
Everything has to have a starting point. And, I'm just very fortunate that I personally get to do what I enjoy most in life, which is being creative in any form. That's just, people say that's where someone flourishes. That's where I flourish, is, if it's got a creative aspect. And the sad thing is that can apply to murals 80 feet high, the same way it can apply to how I fold my clothes and put them in the drawer. So, I mean, it's that ingrained in my life that, so when I say I'm fortunate, I'm very fortunate. And I recognize that daily, hourly sometimes. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good team effort. And man, that's some lightning in a bottle, I think. Some of those moments, and you and Josh hanging 80 feet in the air, painting, 5 stories in the air or something like that. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, that one I didn't see coming. So now I'm, I won't say I'm not still afraid of heights, but I'm not as afraid. So, everybody gets something from it in the end, and whether you know it or not. And I think the best gifts are the ones you don't realize you're receiving.
Wow, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't expect or didn't necessarily seek.
Right. You just one day woke up and go, oh yeah, I can do this now because whatever, X, Y, and Z. Sometimes that's obvious. Other times it's not obvious. So.
Wow. That's a good insight there, Shawn.
Every once in a while I come up with one. Maybe it's the heart medication.
it's doing something to you. It's working.
It's something.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Shawn. Well, we're very excited to just have you and premiere this book. I mean, it's very exciting. Can we plug the book again? And just any other things you want to highlight about the book on the podcast?
There, as I mentioned earlier, about there being a little bit more dive into history with this one. And, I think of myself as a big nerd, history nerd. Like, I was probably one of the only grade school kids who went to that museum on my own accord on a Saturday. Didn't have to, but on several occasions too. But so I think of myself as having I don't know everything, but I have a pretty good knowledge of Marion's past, the highlights at least. And in this book, in the process of this book, I found some things that I was not aware of, didn't have a clue. And when you excuse me, when you find something like that about a place that's so familiar, um, it's I don't know how to describe that feeling. However, as I shared that image, and I won't get into which one it was, but as I shared that image on Facebook, I noticed how many other people were not aware and how it fascinated them as well. It doesn't matter if I share. The one was about Electric Park around the old city reservoir, where we know of as the water department now. Um, doesn't look real inviting today, but in its early days, that was like the high end, high tech. Um, that's when electricity was first becoming big. So the park had swimming, it had rowboats, and an opera house, and benches and paths all around the reservoir that you could sit, and all this was lit up at a time which, you know, they didn't even really have street lights. You know what I mean? So it was
Wow.
a big novelty.
I'd say.
Yeah. So doing the research on that, and then seeing people's response to learning something so new that they just they couldn't wrap their heads around. That to me is that kind of made the book really exciting. So I can say that if going forward, that's where I will head into the obscure little pieces of history. You know, the Mrs. Grandma Klein, who smoked a cigar at the turn of the century, and you know, everybody knew her because she smoked a cigar, and that was something ladies did not do, but socially it was acceptable because, you know, who she was.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of her in the book as well. So
Wow.
it touches on some of these little pieces of history that, you know, we could probably find an equivalent person today, you know, someone who's similar. And that to me, that's the fascinating part. So
And that's a constant rediscovery of the town, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah. I feel like for me, that's what it was. You know, I've always been fascinated with what came before, what was there before. Why did it fail? Why did it go away? You know, why did they mess that building up by you know, things like that?
Sure.
The another one to share, just because I'm babbling now, is the Cobalt Electric Railway that ran through all of Marion and Heron and Energy and up to Spillertown for the coal mines. It was a transportation system put in place to get workers to the coal mines. That was its only purpose. But it did have other benefits, whereas one of them went to the Williamson County Fairgrounds, one of the legs of the railway. And because of that railway, because of the number of people it could draw from in the area, Teddy Roosevelt, during his second run for president, they chose Marion, the Williamson County Fairgrounds, to have one of his speeches because they knew they could draw a lot of people. And I think that was 1908. I can't remember exact year, but early 1900s. There were 15,000 people at the Williamson County Fairgrounds.
Wow.
I don't think anybody alive today can remember a time which there were that many people at the Williamson County Fairgrounds, even for its most popular smash up derby. You know? So anyway,
Wow.
finding out things like that with the railway. Had that railway not been there, that would not have happened.
Wow.
Going a little further, that railway only lasted for about 22 years. And before the Great Depression, the company, I guess the coal mines cars were coming into place. They didn't have to have this railway system, trolley system, so they closed it down. But the electric lines that ran along the railway remained. And if you look today, that's where everything is developed. So if you look at a map today, like all through Spillertown, is one area in particular, all of those little subdivisions that are built along there now are because of that electric line.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So
that's all over. Wherever you follow the rail line, there's development today because at some point it was electrified and it was easier to build a structure on a already developed electric grid. So, yeah.
that is a fascinating piece of history that I didn't know that existed.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can still see traces of it. I'll tell you that because some people won't see this. If you go to Kroger, the next time you go to Kroger, on the west side of Kroger, if you're entering on that side, you kind of the entrance kind of goes downhill a little bit. But if you look to the north as you're coming in there, you will still see the flat bed of the old railway, and it went north and south right next to the Kroger building.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and you can still see remnants of the flat rail bed. Yeah.
Huh.
There's a road behind Kroger called Peabody Road, which was a part of the Peabody Coal Company, used to be. It was a coal mine village that was built along that railway, and it's still there today with that name. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Fun stuff, huh? Fun
Yes.
stuff for geeky nerds.
And how are you finding this information, Shawn? And I don't want to give away a secret sauce or anything, but
I'm just building upon what other people have shared or gathered. Sam Latuka is at the Williamson County Historical Society. A lot of what he shares is invaluable to what I do. Some of it, because I'm so far away, a lot of it is Google Earth, or I call a friend and say, hey, can you go down to, when I was doing the one for the electric park, and I asked them, can you go down and take pictures? And I got a phone call about 20 minutes later. My friend said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that again because they're looking at me really funny.
what are you doing here with the camera?
Yeah, it didn't look quite so, yeah. Anyway, so there's no one source to answer your question. I have a lot of good sources, and then a lot of it is, like I said, I just stumbled upon something someone else has already researched, and then I just dig a little further onto it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Again, like my artwork, being very humbled that I get to do what I enjoy. Being able to tie my nerdiness and in history of Little Marion, Illinois into it makes it a lot more fun too. So,
yeah. Well, Marion's a special place, that is for sure.
Sure, yeah. I'm not delusional. I know it has its issues. I have I have a lot of friends who give me a hard time over being too up on Marion, and I don't have a lot of down to say that I couldn't apply to anywhere else that I've ever been or seen. So
it's true.
I think a lot of it really is just about personal perspective. And, if my perspective bothers someone, then maybe my stuff is not for you. I'm okay with that.
Sure. No, it's true. And you are prolific online, and so I know you deal with that criticism well.
Yeah,
better than I would be able to, Shawn.
I don't unless somebody makes it personal. And that does happen in this day and age, unfortunately. But unless someone makes it personal, I'm not unique in what I do. I'm just unique in maybe how I apply it and what subject matter. But I had a local artist from Heron who made it a point to seek me out to tell me how um, they did not like what I was doing with the murals on the buildings, and that I was, they had some other unfriendly, unnice things to say.
What?
And my response to that was I could take that negatively and respond back negatively. I could, attack back. But once I, in my head, accepted the fact that what this person was saying was not, it had nothing to do with me. It was about that person. And so once I responded with a, politeness, thank you. I don't, it's not matter. It doesn't matter what I responded with, but I responded with politeness, and I didn't hear anything back. So sometimes I think that that's how we have to approach stuff like that. Is, people want to get under your skin because they know they can, and if they can't, then you know this person's opinion is not going to change the fact that I'm still making books and paintings. You know what I mean? So, and it's not going to do me any good to, get in the mud with them. So anyway, I don't know how I got onto that subject,
You
but
can't let them get you down, Shawn,
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's too important work to be done.
more or less, more or less. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is I'm okay for those who maybe don't like my work or don't, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings on that, And I'm, talking in this case like with the murals or, because there are enough people that do like my work that I'm okay.
Yeah, the far majority.
Yeah, I can handle it.
Yeah, Shawn, can you give our younger listeners, maybe somebody in Marion, maybe a youngster, can you give them some encouragement to pursue art and that it is possible to do, such as yourself?
Well, I can say that probably the biggest thing is a creative type that always has to be creating is the one who needs to be pursuing it for life. Um, in this day and age, there's a lot of digital that was kind of just breaking as I was in college. That was in high school and college. So there are a lot more avenues for creative types. So it really depends on what kind of art they're pursuing, if that makes sense. But if you know that you're a creative type in your heart, my biggest piece of advice is just don't ever stop creating. Just continually create, because that's like anything else. Practice makes perfect. You learn something new off of each one. So there are no born artists. There are people who maybe have a little bit different ability to view the world. But as far as an artist goes, a great artist is created, not born. Or there are God-given talents. Sure, I give that. I credit that. But even those with God-given talents have to develop a craft, and that's where it's all about. And for me, it was always about different. I don't stick with one medium. It's paint, drawing, ink, and I like to bounce from one to the other so I don't get bored. So um, that's the other thing, diversity.
That's good advice. No, I
Yeah,
mean that's, just keep creating. That, that that's great.
you said that about the younger people, and I had a run in with somebody the other day. They asked me, our neighbors, they're in their 20s, and we were having a conversation, and he asked what year I was born, and I said 1969, and he said, "Oh, so late 1900s, huh?" And I know my chin hit the ground, And I couldn't say anything because he was right. But just the way, did you have to word it that way? So now I have this thing about when you said that about younger people. I'm like, well, as long as they don't call me old, I guess.
Any age, any age can be started on that
Sure.
journey,
Yeah,
but
I'm not hung up on the age. I thought it, I found the comment rather humorous. Late 1900s. Yeah.
wow. Well, and some of the images you're drawing date back even 100
Yeah.
years previous to that. So
I was kind of, I was kind of old when I was young. And, I hung out with my grandparents. So, it was osmosis. It just kind of stuck to me. So, yeah,
sure.
I kind of had that appreciation for the old stuff before it was old.
Well, hopefully, and these works will like you mentioned will be around and will be, old themselves. I mean,
Well, I mentioned earlier about the Williamson County um, Historical Society and Museum. It was 1982 is when the tornado hit. So it would have probably been the summer after that. So 83 is when I discovered that museum. Might have been 82. And they had a book that you could purchase that they reprinted, and it was a book from 1908, a Williamson County souvenir book is what they called it, and it was this paper clippings, photographs, and stuff from 1908, primarily Marion, but not just. It was Williamson County, so Heron, Energy, other areas. But I purchased that book as a 12, 13-year-old, and was just fascinated by finding those locations that I was seeing in the book, the old photos. And so there is a connection between that and these books, thinking 100 years from now, there's going to be some little kid or some person like myself, nerd, who's going to come across these and go, they're going to find this as a resource as well. And that, to me, I enjoy that aspect. Just, it's just another piece of a legacy. So
super cool.
yeah.
Super cool, Shawn. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just so excited that, you're creating these works and to have you coming back very soon to Marion to showcase it all.
A week from today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. Is there anything else we need to mention on the pod today?
I think I've probably everybody's ears off. So yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you are, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And we could go on, Shawn, and we'll have you back as more projects come to fruition on the podcast to talk more. We could dive deep into all this stuff. So I would definitely want to invite you back in the future as another project comes along.
We'll do it. I'll one of the first images you pulled up of North Market Street. As I was putting this book together, I went to edit it and I found there were some images missing. And as I was puzzling through that, I started looking through the files. There are at least 10 images that I did not get into this volume that I created specifically. That's it. That I created specifically for this book. So I already have 10 images towards volume 4. So who knows?
Wow. Yes.
So yeah, there's there's 50 images plus some portraits in the book. So yeah, I'm a little ahead for volume 4 now.
That's awesome. Well, we'll have hopefully another showing. There's different places here, Shawn, that I'm sure are wanting to have your work in and showcase. So if somebody is listening and wants to feature some of your art or set up a show, is there a way they can do that, or are you accepting that type of things while you're in town, or?
I'll talk to anybody about art, so there's no hesitation on that. Probably the best way to contact me if somebody wants to talk about either a commission piece or something that's already out there, or they just have a question, is going to be probably through my Facebook page, which is my name. I do have an email address, which is WELLGORSH, which is like Goofy. He says, well, gorge. And that's at Gmail. So, but Facebook is the best place.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. I mean, seriously, this is just going to be an awesome day. And again, I'm thrilled that this is the first time it's available in person. So thank you for bringing that, Shawn. And it's just going to be. I'm going to be picking my copy up, and direct access to Shawn Vincelette. That is a coveted thing.
Yeah. I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, I think I'm going to wrap up for today. If there's anything else, I appreciate you jumping on here, and I'm just looking forward to seeing you again. And should be a good time.
Sounds like a plan. I should be driving this time next week. So.
Well, safe journey, Shawn. Thank you for coming on. It's been a true pleasure. Let's see if I can give you, a round of applause for Shawn. Thank you, Shawn.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Well, we'll see you very soon, Shawn. May 6th at the Union Street Arts Fair here in downtown Marion. Come on out for a good time. Art, music. Check out the surrounding activity that's going on, the construction, the new places that are about to open. So we want to encourage people to get out and just check out the whole downtown. Check out some of the murals. Go, do the mural walk. Check out the new fountains. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff going on, so you don't want to miss it.
Awesome.
All righty. Well, thank you for listening. If you're watching, subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. We hope to see you at the Union Street Arts Fair coming soon. Just 1 week away from tomorrow. So thank you again. Thank you, Shawn. And we'll see you in the next video and at the art fair. Okay. Signing off for now.
Yeah.